I'm gonna show you how I fix my subscribers mix. This is gonna be an overview of the main things I did to make it sound a lot more full and hit a lot harder. So for starters, listen to how subdued and rather unclear the leads and kind of background instruments sound.
When I'm walking in and out the bank, gotta tow my pole.
So one thing that was missing in the original mix was some of that panning and ambience created from delays, reverbs, or echoes in those keys, leads, and plucks. So I started with just these two. And for this one right here, I just put on the Abbey Road tape emulator just to give it a little bit more of that analog sound. And then I added this compressor, and you'll know from my video on compression that this is gonna be a nice balance between still upfront and clear, but not clashing with the vocals or any of the lead kind of elements to this song. And then I added the magic EQ and then some regular just EQ to take out some of those harsh mids that kind of just bit your face off. And this is what it sounds like without any kind of ambience. And then here are the two ambient plugins I used, an echo and a reverb, and that makes it sound like this. And as you can hear, that just makes it sound a little bit more flowy, kind of. And then a similar process for these keys, and that kind of just balanced it out. Then I just introduced that pluck in the other set of keys, and I routed them all to this channel, and I knew I was just gonna use those for automation during this really cool vocal part that we'll get to. But basically the automation was just some distortion and then some equalization to make it a little bit boxier and boomier, and that was kind of like when the drums dropped out. And then I just have another saturator the second time the beat kicks in, and that's what this sounds like. And all that together is just gonna make those melodic instruments stand out in kind of this luscious way. And if there's something in this that you find cool, leave a like because it's really helpful. And in return, I'll read and reply to every single comment. Okay, another notable thing I did was boost the kick by like 5 or 6 dB in 80 to 90 hertz. And I boosted it a little bit more with this EQ in 100 hertz. And that was because the 808 was really taking up more of that sub region. Also, I routed all the hi-hats to one bus and put a compressor on that. And this is how I made this perk gunfire sound a lot cooler. So it sounded like this. And then I put on this preamp, some EQ to make it sound a little bit more full, and then some distortion from the decapitator plugin. But the coolest part, in my opinion, was just using this PanMan, and I adjusted the speed and the width, and this way it kind of makes it this moving object in the mix. And this is something that can be done to textures in your mix, so check this out. Also, I thought it would be cool to show you the chain I used for these intro vocals right here. This is how it was sent to me. So I started with a compressor and then an EQ to just cut out any of the low end, and this is what that sounded like. And then I added some distortion. This is the Butch Vig Tube 2 preset. And I thought it was good for the ad-lib sound. This way it also wasn't gonna clash with the lead vocal, which was a lot brighter. And the way I made it sound like super smooth and stereoized, it was with the Abbey Road doubler. If you wanna see a video of this more in depth, check out that video on my channel. And then I put in the verb and it sounds like this. And this is the same vocal track that's on the chorus, and it sounds like this.
Going crazy all night long.
Okay, so now let's get into those vocals.
I ain't the same nigga that you know.
This was the EQ I used. I really brightened it up, and then I used these compressor settings.
I ain't the same nigga that you know.
And then 2 distortions.
I ain't the same nigga that you know.
And then I used the delay trick that I've talked about before, where you put one in the left and one in the right, and this is what that sounds like. And then I just added a plate reverb. This was the first reverb I used on the vocals, and this is what it sounds like in isolation. And I also added this phasey reverb. And I also added this echo effect, which was super awesome. It actually made the vocals sound a little bit more upfront and present.
When I'm walking in and out the bank, gotta tow my pole. When I'm walking in and out the bank, gotta tow my pole. When I'm walking in and out the bank, gotta tow my pole.
And I also added a regular echo, and this one I used for effect during this line. I automated it up in volume.
Ballin' on the hoes like I'm D-Rose. I'll be bullied.
And then I put all the standard ad-libs into a bus that has this old radio voice saturator on it, as well as a compressor, and then a reverb, and that's what this sounds like.
Whoa, nah.
And again, I used this PanMan plugin, which sounded super awesome because it made it more of this spatial dynamic ad-lib. And this part's really cool right here.
Demons following, like it's Halloween, and she swallowing, and I'm following. She just come and go, I'll be trying.
Here's what that ad-lib is doing on its own. Okay, and then all together, I think it sounds pretty cool.
I want so much change. The way she looking at a nigga like she in the day. I ain't sorry about it now, finna take your girl away.
Now for the mix grade. Overall, the mix I was sent was actually pretty good. It was just a little bit too bright and too subby, and those keys could have been a little bit more present and less washed out sounding. Oh, and the other big thing is to make sure your mixes have more automation in them. But overall, it was pretty good, so I would call it a B+. And it was at a point where I could just use one plugin to make it sound a lot better.
The way she looking at a nigga like she in the day. I ain't sorry about it now, finna take your girl away. Even on off days.
And this is just a mix video, but if you want me to do a video on how I did that, just let me know. If you want to watch more Fix Your Mix videos or other tricks I have, just click one of these videos right here. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.